The World Bank says it will take 2 years to get back to what it was pre-COVID. Obviously this year looks pretty terrible with, I think, the Siam Commercial Bank had it at a contraction of 7.8% this year. World Bank says it's going to go up by, 4% next year, another 3% in 2022. So by end of 2022, we should be okay. So I think that goes for tourism as well.
We are pure inbound company, so but as well these days we try to get a little bit of the domestic market, so we're all hunting for this small piece of cheese somewhere around. I think as well it takes maybe a little bit longer than 2022 to get back to the 40 millions. Question is as well, do we want to go back to 40 million or shall we go step by step? It will be like a slowly recovery in 2021. We hope that in 2022 we can let's say for my main markets, which are Central Europe, South America, North America, get back to the same figures as we had before. Plus I think it takes a little bit longer.
I think I will just answer your question directly. 2024, and I think that will take a lot of work. Even if there is a remedy or a vaccine that's found, it will not be perfect. We will not have the antibodies. There are underlying systemic changes that are taking place. So I'd like to share the optimism of William, but I really think we need to step back. Further to that, the Thailand Tourism Authority, and led by the ministry, they've done a bit of introspection. We've always heard them talk quantity over quality or quality over quantity, but I think that's real religion now. They really want the quality. What does this mean for all the other hotels? Because we still have enormous capacity that's going to be underutilized then for the next 24 months. So this is the central question.
And if you look at the figures, actually, if you look at Europe and the United States, Americas, and Europe, they bring about, each visitor brings in about 68 to 70,000 baht per visitor. You look at shorter haul, so basically East Asia, China, that's between 45 and 49,000 baht. So we got to look at our source markets very carefully, and by and large, staying longer. And this was a previous tourism minister that also pointed towards that. Staying longer means a bigger spend as well. So you can stay like 3 or 4 days and you stay in Oriental or somewhere like that. That's fine. So then you are a luxury traveler, but you only go to one place and that's it. And is the spread of the tourism dollar going well? And that's more to your point when it goes to the long tail of tourism, which is very hard to measure. There are some studies, I'm trying to figure it out. Actually, there have been made some studies about the informal tourism sector. We all know it's like 21.6% of GDP is tourism, but that is the official figure. But we all know also now, if you go to Khao San Road and you don't see the stalls in the streets, that's not being counted as the formal sector. So the long tail on that is much more than that. And does that answer the question also about going for luxury tourism?
You're absolutely right. When we talk about luxury travel, we mainly talk of Europeans, long haul. We in Diethelm Travel, we have of course a very high percentage of luxury travelers, mainly as well from Latin and South America, Spanish markets, etc. Other thing is that many of the DMCs here not really worked with the Chinese and the Indian market. That's the next issue we have. Everyone tried to get some Chinese, or these days anyhow, everyone tried to get Chinese sooner or later through sea trips or other bed banks, etc. It's difficult to get to these high-end travel agencies in China and India, and it's a smaller percentage. But I personally think as well that when we start doing luxury travel, the mass market will sooner or later, or the mainstream will follow anyhow. But there is another factor which is very important as well about airfares. I mean, what is an airfare in the future? You see at the moment that the airlines are very, confused as well, as we are everyone as well. Some airlines are offering very cheap rates these days, and some airlines are skyrocket high. So they have as well somehow no strategy these days. But I'm pretty sure that we will start with high end, but mainstream saying not low budget, but mainstream 3-4 star tourism will follow very, very soon, I'm sure.
It all gets back to de-risking your money when it comes in, whether you're feeding your problem property because there's just no business. How do we either reposition it or do we close it, do we sell it? But really at the heart of your question is that buyer profile. It is definitely shifting, and we've all heard the themes of safety, and we have our very successful SHA program well underway here. Those are good ticks on the box. But when it comes to fresh money coming in, I think you're going to see most of the market shifting to the, let's just call it the 4 and 5 star market, and would submit to you though with the 5 star, anything that's in a luxury space, whether it's branded or unbranded, I think the branding probably has a bit of an advantage at that front. I think this is where you'll see the highest demand, and you'll also see better non-room spending. Non-room spending. And that could include some MICE business selectively with the passage of time. So I think these are the segments that probably have the highest profile for cash flow over the next 36 months and will be less risky.
I'm pretty sure that the people will travel different in the near future. Near future, always very difficult to say. We don't know, not even know when we open the borders, so difficult to say what is the near future. I'm very sure there is more a trend for individual tours, traveling individual, most probably as well not to too many destinations, because the risk when you travel even more is even higher. Go back to smaller groups. Some families, friends know each other anyhow, live in the same household in Europe, traveling together. Smaller groups, 6 to 8 people, I guess this will be the nearer future. But I think these 40, 50 buses and so on, etc., that will be off for a while.
If you go, for example, to, if you're from Thailand and you visit Africa, you need to have vaccinations. You need to have your vaccinations on yellow fever and stuff like that. So it's not without any, we can see the examples out there. But for a corona type of virus, I don't know if that's if that's where countries are going. It could be an advantage, but it could also be seen as a disadvantage. Will source markets go to that length of doing it, or say like, well, if you have to do that, I'd rather go to a different destination? So on the surface it looks nice, but we need to first see if a vaccine will ever be developed. Let's all remember also SARS, for which there was a frantic action at the time to develop a vaccine as well, and never came. And after a while, because it kind of disappeared in the background, there was no financial backing anymore for a vaccine. So we may first see that, and then to see if it is actually helpful. So, and I think it's too early to say that we don't know enough about the disease as it is.
Yeah.
I heard as well, I read in a German newspaper yesterday as well, this immunity is not 100% confirmed. So there are a lot of professors, etc., saying this need to be tested even further, and it's not 100% guaranteed that you're really immune about it.
I think it is, I guess it picks up on the theme of the introspection that the country's even going through with led by the ministries, the TAT, but when you come down to the hard real estate, it does present an opportunity, including completely abandoning the hotel, or maybe making it a service department or converting it to something else. But really, what you're really asking is, can you turn that into a marketing advantage with the appropriate amount of spend? And I think, I'm sure you've been to at least 24 webinars over the last 8 weeks, and maybe one of those did touch on sustainability. But so I'm not going to educate you on that, but I will tell you what my 2 takeaways, again, this is from an investor's perspective, is that by coming back in with a fresh set of eyes, and let's just assume you're probably the 2nd or 3rd owner of the property, because capital is so tight right now. It will take, it's that next wave of capital that will take in the new designs in terms of densities, fabrics, indeed those energies, the solar, everything that we have been aspiring to do as an industry. But I think it serves as an accelerator, and then when you step back from that, that should serve as a marketing advantage. And hopefully you've lowered your operating costs.
Actually, it is going mainstream already. I think we've seen that sector of tourism for good actually growing in actually throughout all the market segments, also luxury travel and in four-star travel, and of course the backpacker market as well. There's been kind of a shift from what we used to be the CBT, community-based tourism, like the homestay type of things, and then kind of like the market figured out that nobody really wanted to stay in someone's home with the toilet outside. So that went into a little bit more professionalized, smaller guest houses, and then it went into experience travel, and we've seen that experience travel and local experience and really being part of the local community and actually giving something back. Rather than just leaving your footprint, also, participate in the development of a culture or community or giving back to the environment, as we see with our tented camp in Cambodia, where people specifically come because they know they are contributing to the protection of nature by their stay. So this is already getting more mainstream. We see it more in bigger hotels. See this coming back, giving back to the community and making people aware of that.
But in my opinion, we need more pressure. We need more pressure to government, to tourism minister, to the top ministers actually, that we can simply not survive like that. I mean, we didn't have income since April, so we are April. The last passengers left the country, so we had no income in April, May, June. July we tried to get some of these local markets, but how long this gonna take? But at least we need timelines. This is the point. I think we will get to this point later on as well. But we need timelines now. As of when can we get the first international customers in the country, and I expected a little bit more pressure from that side, or as well a bit of an outcome what we do afterwards. So what are the plans and the marketing activities as soon we have these timelines? I mean, it cannot be in the shoes of DMCs, airliners, tour operators to do all their jobs. So TAT need to be super active in these days then as well too.
Thailand gets about 3.2 trillion baht a year from tourism. 2/3 of that comes from international markets, and 1/3, about 1.1 trillion exactly, it's almost exactly 1/3, is the domestic market. But here's the catch, obviously. Will the domestic market has free cash to spend to stay on that level of 1.1 trillion? I don't think so. It's interesting, the TAT measures it, the foreign arrivals in persons, but they measure the domestic market in amount of trips. So that's 176 million trips a year on the domestic market. But when I look at it, I think it is a lot less. You just only have to I've been in Chiang Mai and Chiang Rai. I've been like a couple of weeks ago. And it's a ghost town. There's nobody there, and let's not even talk about Nan, that has been closed for a longer time, and Pai and all of these places. National parks have just been opened up. Think only about that. National parks generate about 900 million Thai baht a year in entrance fees, and that just closed for 3 months. And if they reopen, we all know the 2-tier fares. They at most get the Thai fare. So the overall thing is that I would say it's a very important question. I think the future is very dark, and if it's going to close for 6 months, I don't think Thailand can survive. Let alone the tourism industry. Forget about the tourism industry. I don't think Thailand can survive. Some more figures and dates. We all know 1987 was Visit Thailand year. This is basically when the boom started. In 1988, 65% of Thais were living on or below the poverty line. Last year, 2018, actually it was 10%. So you can just imagine the curves, and it's not only the tourism industry, obviously, that has is the factor on that. There's other factors as well as that, car industry and manufacturing and all of that, but mostly tourism. So you take it away, and that's a little bit where I come earlier. It's 21.6% of GDP, but you don't factor in all the other industries that have formed around this tourism industry, the health industry, healthcare industry, the hospitals here. So everything basically is suffering. So 6 months is bringing Thailand back to the 1970s.
David, just going back to your question, what can we do now? You said shift different markets. There are a lot of entrepreneurs in this room, and then there's consultants that actually should help those entrepreneurs. I think you've got to look at it with, you've got to deal with what you have, okay, in this, because frankly, you said 6 months. It's frankly going to be probably about at least another 3 months. There's just a little trickle of international. Just to remind, so we're all on the same page, we've got your business travelers, which, you know, the government is welcoming. This isn't even with the formalized travel bubbles, and I know you have some questions on that. So you've got your business travelers, whether they're BOI or otherwise, basically people who have money to spend to come in. Then the medical tourists, and you can, you know, I think you have upwards of almost 3 people, and they stay a good length of time. You can write a little bit of a business model on that. We have excellent healthcare here, and then you've got the spouses of Thais and other family-related members. You know, that's maybe about 2.5–3% of the numbers that William was just mentioning. Now, here's the harsh reality. If indeed it looks like, because there could be a second wave, you know, Hong Kong has said they're having their 3rd wave. I don't know what really justifies that description. And assuming the media actually remains reasonably responsible and doesn't inflame the situation, I guess what I could see is that there will be very few arrivals. I think we're targeted to hit 15.6 arrivals this year, right? Which means there's still a lot to come. But I think getting back to what we have to use what we have, and that is a hotel that has 400 rooms should only have 150 rooms. You're just going to mothball those others, and you're only going to have 2 F&Bs, and you just have to do that. That's just the right sizing, and that's already happening, but I think you're going to see a continuation of that. As ugly as that is to say.
Okay. I mean, how we handle it at the moment is not going to work, of course. We cannot say, okay, we start the bubbles here and there, and 2 days later we stop it. That's anyhow something I would really to really criticize them here as well. Bubbles could be a start. Bubbles could be a start with some neighborhood countries. We could try to get business from Vietnam, from Myanmar, etc., but into the country. But then they said as well it's going to be limited by whatever 1,000 people a day. Yeah, that doesn't help us much too. There's so many DMCs, so many hotels, so many whatever else fighting for these 1,000. We should talk about green lanes as well. Countries where we have very low COVID infections, like from Europe, for example, EU countries, which we should maybe open and say we do a travel bubble or a green line from Germany, for example, to Phuket, and say, okay, the Germans are allowed to travel to Phuket. That could be an option as well. Of course, under some restrictions, COVID tests before and after arrival, for example. Travel bubbles, yeah, but it need to be extended, definitely. And they need to be started now and not in 4 months.
I mean, which business can survive with 0 clients and 0 revenue? No business. And I saw a study from a business network in tourism. I've actually never heard of it, so I'm sure someone in this room has read it as well, that they project that in the next 3 months, with no changes, in the next 3 months, about 30% of travel and hospitality businesses will go out of business. And I think that is realistic. And it might be for different reasons. It might also be if there's no reason to stay open, if there's no particular commercial reason, but not also to keep your staff on, you have to make a decision at something. You have to do something else, and that comes to the point of what Charlie was making. I mean, yeah, we are talking about entrepreneurs, so they go like, this is not what can continue. We need to do something else, and that's maybe what will happen. And that's not a good development for Thailand at all, actually. Given you know, then you get into the competitive set for Thailand, and we all know, you know, education it's lagging overall. And what are you going to do? STEM? I don't think so. Not Thailand. Manufacturing, not with the salary that it's being kind of like on the luxury 5-star travel market, salaries is what this economy is built on. So we're going to see a lot of pain no matter what. 3 months, 2 months. But I kind of like say every week we have no clarity. I'm not saying opening, but no clarity on the date. Every week will cost us another month.
If we're talking about 6 months, I don't think we can survive. If you take shorter term, okay. But the most important is what Willem said. We need the timelines to plan. We need to make sure that we can start selling from November, December, January. We actually receive bookings. We receive bookings for January, February, March. Not like in figures as we had before, but we receive 5 from Germany, 5 from Switzerland per day, Scandinavian booking, but mostly not for this year, it's more for next year. And 1000% sure when we say we can welcome them as of 1st of November, 1st of December, they will start to book. I'm 1000% sure. Not in the same size as we had in the last years. Thailand was booming, Thailand was doing extremely well out of our main source markets, but it will, yes.
We had a lot of business on the books up until early June. We had a lot of business on the books for July and August. So, and we still have a lot of business on the books for September, October, November, December.
Correct.
So it is not that we have 0 bookings and we have to wait and when we open for business. No, people have actually booked and they're ready to go. But, you know, if they can't go or they can't go back or there's this threat of, you know, and then they won't go.
Yeah,
so the business potential is definitely there.
We're still holding groups for October, November, December. We have bicycle groups, etc. They're still there. They still want to travel, actually. Yeah. They didn't cancel. They always say, okay, let's postpone another month, another little longer, and we decide later. But they will come. They will travel.
When you meet a hospitality person, it's just in their DNA. I think I've met with a lot of young people and people my age or a little bit older.
No problem.
I would say that they have just a core inner strength, a spirit. They may have to find something else to do to support their families or whatever the needs are. So the HR part is really challenging, and I know you've heard from Arne Sorensen to all the big chains to even Kun Chan-in from Dusit. I mean, it's really emotional for them to let these people idled or be removed. And mom and pops, it's the biggest cottage industry in the world. So Thailand's not unique in this fashion, but there is excess capacity. So there will continue to be very talented people that will be available for other industries, maybe healthcare, maybe financial services. So just for clarity on these bubbles, travel bubbles or green lanes, there's actually underlying bilateral agreements that have to be signed between various governments, and then you have to stick to those rules. The problem is that there's a shortage of political capital in some markets. In Thailand, this is probably a challenge for it to spend that political capital versus another one over in the United States that's kind of going off the wall. So back to the technology part. On Friday, His Excellency Peapot, Minister of Tourism, we had a little AmCham chat with him, and the three, unless something's changed today and I've missed it, the 3 new bubbles that are the bubbles that they're trying to use their political capital to spend on are indeed Phuket, Krabi, and Siratani, namely Koh Samui. And Koh Samui probably has the most competitive advantage because it's an island, the air moves. These will be the grand experiment over the next, whenever we really push the button, which is now I think September 1. That happens to coincide with TG getting its legs back too. There's maybe a little story in that. The technology part though, there are 4 big technology companies that have banded together. They just made their announcement this week. Maybe some of you have read it. It's called the Travel Technology Partnership of Asia. It comprises Agoda Booking, which is the father of Agoda, Expedia, and Airbnb. And it's an open forum, but and they're the founding partners, but it's how do we use technology to help the governments not only better inform themselves, but to gather business. I know some traditional travel businesses, we all love to hate OTAs, but I don't think it's purely an OTA story. It's how to use technology, even down to the apps that would be, tracking you if you had to be traced. So technology will build another level of comfort and hopefully enable when those are our first 3 travel bubbles. I just don't know when the general tourist is going to come back.
Well, this all starts with their do they have standard operating procedures in place? A surveillance document, right? So they need to know what needs to be done, what's the hygiene taken care of, how is the process, why? Is the process of the how, the why, and the what needs to be done? If they have those in place, then they are aware about the process and procedures in place. And again, going back to the technology part of it, it's not about only having the document, it's also about being able to trace them. This is where digital space comes in significantly. You are able to trace back to its root cause, providing the countermeasure perspective, providing the whole part of the root cause, what's the countermeasure, who is the date, timestamp, everything. This is going to become, it has to be at your fingertips. If you don't have traceability, I don't think so you are prepared. You can go to the logbook, you can see who signed it, you can go and see what's the date, but is that true? That's the part that the evidential information is missing.
The consumer, the end consumer is very willing to as well spend more money or get he expect higher prices. Actually, we have this eco fare, when you, how you call it, when you're in an airplane when you're flying, that started already. You have these extra costs in planes. I'm pretty sure that the end consumer is ready to pay a little bit more if it's not skyrocket high, of course. But I mean, this is one of the most questions we receive. What about sustainability? What about this and that? What about eco-friendly resorts, eco-friendly stuff? They are willing to pay a little bit more if it's not really too exaggerated. We definitely all have to fight. It's every individual, every industry, it's every small piece, I guess, helped. We as DMCs, we did it as well. We opened United DMCs of Thailand. We as well as DMC, Diethelm Travel, one of the leading DMCs, we went to see the TAT governor with letters, with some presentations, some ideas. We addressed letters to the tourism minister as well. Same time we asked hotel, especially the big guys, the big chains, to put pressure on the government. Not only thinking of COVID figures. I mean, it's fantastic to hear that we have 45 days, or what is today, 43 days without COVID in Thailand. That doesn't help us at all, guys. I mean, we need to have timelines, and I don't like to say it, but somehow we, in Thailand, my opinion, maybe I'm wrong, but we need to live with the virus somehow. The virus will not be gone in 2 months, 3 months, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. And in Europe, they show it very good actually these days. Take Switzerland, for example, Germany, Austria. We shut down, we opened up, and the figures are not really that high. People traveling, economy is back. I mean, this is what we need here in Thailand as well, as soon as possible. We have, how many, 9 million unemployed tourism people in the country already. And this cannot continue.
It's not a tourism thing. This is a decision that needs to be made on prime minister type of level, because this is where it all comes together. The economy comes together, social structure comes together, of course, businesses and income, taxation. Think about the loss of taxation by just being closed with all our industry. It's just massive, and I think ministries of tourism, and that's not only in Thailand, it's in general in Southeast Asia, are the least important ministries, if you will, in the whole spectrum of governance. But the idea of going to make it about zero cases, which is what Thailand is now all about. It's about zero cases. It's not about flattening a curve or making sure that you can contain a virus when it's an outbreak when it's there. It's about zero cases, and that's not only a Thai thing. Well, the zero cases are. Vietnam is a similar type of situation, painting yourself in a corner. But in Europe, my home country, in Holland, we have similar type of things, is trying to make it all about the virus as if there's nothing else. And the traffic accidents, what was brought up, I mean, on an average day, you have something like between, 25 to 35 people dying in traffic here every single day. And I'm sure you see them as well, no helmets, no light at night, but a mask on. So, take your priorities. Okay. Well, our lodges are open. We have a small nature lodge in south of Thailand, and we have a nature lodge in Cambodia. Both have opened up in the 1st of July, but this being opening up for the domestic market, And normally these lodges are, you know, it's 90% international market. So we have to take a whole different rate structure, which is behind. It's not just dumping the price for no particular reason. You're going to have to go lower the price in order to get the domestic market. They don't pay that much, and that is being seen in the total spend. So it is partly just to get some people in the door, and you know, kind of like have your hotel open and your staff at work. And in our case, we support the community. They do all the activities with the community, the people from the community, and they also have zero. So again, that's that non-formal, informal part of the sector is being hit extremely hard. So because of that, you just need to go with the market, and the market is lower in price. That's what it is. But the whole thing is obviously you don't build, and Charlie will know this, you don't build a hotel, you build this hotel with very strict budgets in mind in a long-term forecast. And, you know, in most cases it will be based on bank loans, and the bank will want to get their money at the end of the month.
We be very innovative these days. I mean, we said as well, domestic market, yes, but we're not going to go for staycations and 900-baht hotels. You need to offer unique products these days. You need to offer a niche. You have to offer something very different. You know, Thai people maybe want to go for a farm stay, or what is important for Thai people, maybe a celebrity was there already, we do a photo stop there. You need to be a little bit more creative. We were thinking of family holidays, kids camps, because there's so many expats here which normally travel back to Europe with the kids in the summertime. So okay, why not offer kids camps, doing kids days? I mean, all these things we are trying to launch these days. But I think we don't get rich out of that. And back to the other point, I mean, it's stupid to just dump the rates. We saw that already from so many hotels. They dumped the rate till far into 2021 already. I mean, how stupid is this? They offered like 40-50% discounts up to April 21, and this is not really but we should go for it. I mean, the international traveler is more looking for SHA procedures. We have to get the trust of these as well. We have to tell them this is safe to travel, then they spend a little bit more money as well. And I would suggest as well, go for more added value, unique products than just dumping rates.
Well, I just wanted to get a couple of these points out of this study that I just read. There are considerable worries about security, more domestic holidays, more holidays in neighboring countries, significantly fewer overseas trips, significantly fewer business trips, less traditional plane trips, significantly more car and bus trips, and it goes on like this. So when you read this, you're like, oh yeah, well, kind of makes sense, right? This is what we are going into. And then I'd like to remind you that this study was done in January 2004. This was after the SARS crisis. Now, we all know what happened after 2004. Not that much, actually. 2004 was not a great year, but definitely a step up from 2003, and we kept growing from that. 2005 was good. I think it's going back to old normal.
Okay, good.